Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful, swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Tuesday, January 5th, 2016. Just checking in again. Just and a little bit cloudy, nice little cool temperature last night. So, loving weather, I would say. For all you married folks out there, especially. Yeah, what I was gonna say is a lot of stuff is going to be happening. I know everyone's been talking about the executive order by the Lord and Savior Barry Soetoro or President Obama. Talk about common sense gun laws. We're going to talk about that and what's going on, what happened in Germany with a lot of cases of rape cases that's occurring by the bunch of degenerates, the criminal elements of the whole refugee crisis going on over there. I say the criminal elements and no one else across the board because that's how I am. And of course, going on with a little claim that's going on in the whole Syrian conflict. I find it very interesting. So we're going to hit a couple things first pertaining to the whole thing that's what's going on in Oregon with the militias being by one of the Bundy sons. Not went in, took it over, and a lot of it makes emotions on that within the liberty movement itself. It's always saying like they respect what they're doing, but it's always the timing. So like Stuart Rhodes and a few others are talking about that. Stuart Rhodes from Oath Keepers, and I was watching some of the videos too on their side as well, which is very, they're very, they don't want to go and fight. But I know what's been happening in Oregon. 'Cause I know I did an episode a while back reading on what occurred with the economic situations when they're shutting lumber down and a lot of the other manufacturing and producing facilities. So, and the economy over there was really bad, and the federal government's trying to take over the lands. I know there's a video out there too, making an accusation about the BLM. Federal government wants to get involved, and he wants to get those areas where the Hammond farms and so forth on natural gas, that produce natural gas. So I want to try to put all those links in there pertaining to that, so at least you know what I'm talking about, and of course, Mr. Bundy's views too. He's trying to be very compassionate, and he had these beliefs on why it need to be done now. So it's really sketchy to a lot of people's perspectives. Just taking the initiative, trying to look at a few things, and I understand, but as always, people are saying, when is the time to do it? That's the question, the timing. So I want to leave it at that for the moment. However, I am going to just chuck a few things here on about this. Which going to be one to be from This one's going to be from naturalnews.com by Mike Adams. FBI preparing for Waco-style armed raid in Oregon. Local schools taken over by feds as staging areas for weapons stockpiling and preparation for massive assault. As it reads here, Natural News can now exclusively report that local schools near Burns, Oregon, are being used as staging areas by FBI and other federal officials in preparation for the armed raid on the protesters camping out at the Malheur Wildlife Refuge. This has been relayed to Natural News via TalkNetwork.com. Hosts who are on the location and have independently affirmed the accuracy of the startling revelation. Pete Santilli, a talk show host with TalkNetwork.com, is on the scene and broadcasting live from time to time at TalkNetwork.com/live. I want to stop at that for the time being because I know there's some accusations against Mr. Santilli himself that he was an FBI agent, according to the Vinny Eastwood show and Susan Suzanne Posel from Occupy Corporatism. There's a claim on that, and they had documentation. And I have seen that episode, so I just want you guys, folks, know to observe responsibly. Doesn't matter who it is, but observe responsibly, okay? But I am not here to crucify Mr. Santilli by any means. But there's a few things that was like an interesting example of what I saw. All right, next one here. The federal government is staging military-style weapons, tactical equipment, and long-range observation gear inside at least one school. Natural News has learned, apparently contradicting the FBI's publicized claim that it seeks a peaceful resolution to the standoff. The kind of equipment being staged by federal officials is inconsistent with any peaceful resolution and looks intended to bring the standoff to a sudden and violent end with bloodshed caused by an armed government carrying out the mass slaughter of private citizens and protesters. Most likely, this equipment includes night operations gear, such as PVS-27 light magnification optics that can be attached to exist rifle optics, with requiring a re-zero enabling federal officials to conduct nighttime sniper fire on target inside the compound. All signs now point to a nighttime or early morning armed assault on the compound, with federal officials likely hoping to catch the armed protesters asleep or operationally disadvantaged by darkness. An armed raid and slaughter by the feds would fulfill the insane calls for violence being heard today by rational leftists like Montel Williams, with just one of thousands of homicidal leftists who openly call for the government to side with the protesters with the shoot to kill orders. Montel Williams, this is from his tweet, from his tweet here. It says this: then let's give them some put this down using National Guard with shoot to kill orders. If that's the case, Mr. Williams, you know what? You're just another bend over Bob and Uncle Tom to the New World Order. Congratulations on exposing yourself. If this is the case, all right. AG. It says here, there's intent. It says there's intent is to get attention. There always have been intent. Their intent. All right. And it says here in an article entitled "Why Our Leftists Are So Gung Ho About Shooting Americans for Disobeying Government." Breitbart.com's Ben Shapiro wrote, in the aftermath of Ammon Bundy's group takeover of an empty government hut in the wilderness in response to the government's egregious miscarriage of justice against the Hammond family, the left has given in to its ravenous Twilight-style bloodlust. Let's ignore that. The left has routinely made excuses for actual violence from groups ranging from Baltimore and Ferguson rioters to Occupy Wall Street. Yesterday, I was also warned that a slaughter by the feds could ignite a nationwide armed citizens' revolt against federal tyranny. In that story, I urge federal officials to maintain a calm stance and seek a nonviolent solution, even if it means waiting out the Oregon protesters for months. I do have to agree with him on that as well. There's a lot of people in these federal positions have families, and they do care about about the United States and their citizens as well. Just to be honest. All right, it says here psyops and false flags. Meanwhile, Natural News has been told that there are 4 to 5 layers of psyops taking place here, and the Talk Network host is now telling us that he was confronted by multiple provocateurs, meaning undercover federal agents were somehow trying to get him to escalate the situation into more violence, creating a cover story for the feds to more easily justify an armed assault when the time comes. Natural News has also learned that women and children are inside the compound alongside the armed male protesters who have stalled. They are carrying firearms solely for self-defense and have no intentions of initiating any acts of violence whatsoever. This means if the feds stage an armed assault, they will be slaughtering women and children alongside the men. Can we say Waco, April 19th, 1993, and of course, Wounded Knee, women and children as well. So that's from government, so I had to throw that in there also. Update has also been confirmed by Brandon Darby of Breitbart.com, who just posted this article and video revealing the presence of a mother and baby inside the compound. You can see it for yourselves, folks. That'd be great. Furthermore, the FBI is actively attempting to interfere with independent media ability to report the facts as they unfold on the scene. The FBI is trying to shut down independent media potentially Media, Peace and Tilly told Natural News. Substantial efforts are being made to intimidate indie media and prevent it from being able to continue stream live from the location. Most likely an attempt for the feds to monopolize the narrative as they did in the Waco raids from 2 decades ago. U.S. presidential senator and presidential candidate, U.S. senator and presidential candidate Ted Cruz has called the armed protesters to stand down, pleading with them to find an alternative way to resolve the situation that does not threaten violence. Hopefully, Senator Cruz can do the same thing with the federal agents. Okay? Yet right now, it seems like the federal government is the entity preparing to commit mass violence, not not the camped out protesters. For more real-time breaking news, at Talk Live, follow more at Talk News. Talk News Network, talknetwork.com/live. So this is going to be really interesting stuff here. And you got to keep our thoughts and prayers or blessings to both sides of the pendulum of the situation. Like I said before, and even Ammon Bundy says, hey, they have families as well. They want to tend to their families also, the federal agents themselves. So this is what people have to really pay attention to. One of my comrades asked me that question or talked about the whole show that is happening over there. He gave me my intake, and during that time, I do have to say, at that time, I did say, hey, I have to examine, I have to examine, you have to get more information to examine more, need more information to examine to make a conscious decision. However, I'm expecting, I'm expecting a ooh, infiltrators, plants, agents, provocateurs. Always observe responsibly. So he knew I'm a fair man, a fair person on this. I'm not going to go gung ho by any means. And I see these I see these ridiculous um, about Al Qaeda and all, and they try to use these language to call them domestic terrorism. If you folks really gonna manifest and jump the gun on this, you know what? You really need to look at the bigger picture. So let me call you right back. So that's why I have to really find it really, really sketchy. So I have someone try to call me as I speak, and I'm gonna be taking a little breather for a moment, and I'll be right back. So stay tuned, or actually hang tight. All right, sorry about that. So that's like the areas of what's going on with the whole thing with FBI and so forth, the federal agents and the whole provocateur. And there's a couple of links down here. You can follow them up. Fetch News, Fetch.news, and of course, GoGopher.com. You know, some people are really a little critical, so you got to make your own decision on that search engine. And so, next one here, I'm going to be talking. Well, it'd be same thing. It actually came out yesterday. It was from the 4th of January. It came from New American, and this was written by, hold on, where is it? Sulin Duke. Sulin Duke. And it's this here. It's entitled "Armed Bundy's Friends Battles Feds Over Two Ranchers Imprisoned." And as it reads here, the Bundys are back after prevailing and grazing higher right standoff with the Bureau of Land Management (BLM) agents last year. The Nevada ranching clan is again locking horns with the feds. This time, Ammon Bundy shown is leading an armed group of protesters, which includes his two brothers, who have occupied a federal building in Mulhern National Wildlife Refuge near Burns, Oregon. The men are taking up the cudgels for a pair of ranchers they claim have been unjustly imprisoned by the central government. The ranchers Dwight Hammond, 73, and his son Stephen Hammond, 46, have been in conflict with the feds for decades and was recently sentenced to 5 years in prison, reports the Washington Post. The prosecutors accused the Hammonds of committing arson on federal land in 2001 and 2006. The men and their attorneys argue that the fires had been set on their own property, once to prevent the spread of invasive species, plant, and once in an attempt to prevent the spread of a wildlife, and had inadvertently burned onto public lands. But prosecutors said fires were set in an attempt to destroy evidence that the Hammonds had been illegally hunting deer on the federal lands. Two men had previously served prison time for the crimes, but earlier this year, a federal appeals court concluded that their initial sentence had been too short. Arson on federal property carries a mandatory sentence to 5 years and ordered the men back to prison. What? Good grief. Police State 101? That's what happens when you have a court system run by a federal corporation. I will continue on here. The armed protesters were part of a larger rally for the Hammonds on Saturday. Afterwards, right, CNN, the armed group broke into the refuge unoccupied building and refused to leave. CNN continued. We will be here as long as it takes, said Ammon Bundy, a spokesman for the group. We have no intention of using force upon anyone, but if force is used against us, we will defend ourselves. Bundy is the 40-year-old son of Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy, who drew the national attention last year after staging a standoff with federal authorities over a Bureau of Land Management dispute. Ammon Bundy said the group in Oregon was unarmed, but said he would not describe it as a militia. Bundy declined to say how many people were occupying the building. We are not terrorists, he said. We are concerned citizens and realize we have to act if we want to pass along anything to our children. A U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service spokesperson said the agency and the Bureau of Land Management are aware of the armed protesters and will continue to monitor the situation. Whatever the facts of the Hammond case and whatever the outcome of this protest, critics such as American thinker Rick Moran pointed out the larger point being made by Bundy until it needs airing. To wit, writes Moran, the federal government owns too much land, especially in the western United States. Even more to the point, the government manages land stupidly. Wildlife refuge are a fine idea within reason, but reason, logic, and intelligence is sorely lacking as the government gives into the demands of greens who weep when a tree is cut down and thinks saving every insect, varmint, and weed should override the needs of the human psych beings. And the amount of land of the feds owned is staggering. As the Congressional Research Service reports, federal government owns roughly 635 to 640 million acres, 28% of the 2.27 billion acres of land in the United States. And then with the vast majority of Uncle Sam real estate lying in the West, it's not surprising Fed citizen range wars arise there. The central government owns 0.4% of Connecticut and Rhode Island, 0.8% of Iowa and New York, and only 3 states east of Colorado are above the 10% mark. Yet, lowest figures states west of Kansas is just under 30%. Montana, in Oregon, where the current controversy rages, the feds own more than half the state, and the Bundys, Nevada holds the record, with the central government laying claim to a whopping 84.5% of the land. Perhaps this suits some state governments as they receive federal payments for the acreage to compensate them for lost real estate taxes. Yet it certainly doesn't suit all their residents, as CNN also reported. Bundy stated that the Muller National Wildlife Refuge has taken over 100 ranches since the early 1900s. They are continuing to expand the refuge at the expense of the ranchers and miners. Bundy said he had also Harney County in southeastern Oregon went from one of the state's wealthiest counties to one of the poorest. While CNN wrote it is not independently corroborated, Bundy claims federal land grabs truly are nothing new. As an example, the New American William F. Jasper wrote last year in The War on the West why more Bundy standards are coming. There's a link for that, so check it out. Chief Judge Robert C. Jones of the Federal District Court of Nevada last year ruled that the BLM had been engaged in decades-long criminal conspiracy against the Wayne Hage family, fellow rancher, and friends of the Bundys. Among other things, Judge Jones accused the federal bureaucrats of racketeering under the federal RICO, Racketeer Influence and Corruption Organizations statute, and accused them, as well as extortion, mail fraud, and fraud, in an effort to kill the businesses of Mr. Hague. In fact, the government's actions were so malicious, said the judge, it as to shock the conscience of the court. Judge Jones granted an injunction against the agency and referred the area BLM and the Forest Service managers to the Justice Department for prosecution. And such trespasses will inspire opposition. As for current protests, estimates of the number of people at the refuge range from 15 to 150, and while Bundy would not disclose how many are militia members, citing operational security, some of the protesters are merely local residents. Yet not everyone in the Burns area supports the effort. The Hammonds have said they don't want the protesters' help and that the group doesn't speak for them. Local resident Monica McCannon told KTVZ that she doesn't like the militia's method. They had their rally, she continued. Now it's time for them to go home. People are afraid of them. I don't know why, but it's interesting here. Washington Post quotes Harney County Sheriff David Ward stating these men protesters came to Harney County claiming to be part of a militia group supporting local ranchers, when in reality these men had alternative motives to attempt to overthrow the county and federal government in hopes to spark a movement across the United States. Whatever the wisdom of the current protest, however, it itself merely reflects a wider, already vibrant movement to resist federal constitutional trespass and tyranny. This has manifested itself in the state nullification efforts, in which states recognize federal actions as constitutional and thus null and void, targeting central governments dealing with matters from gun control to Obamacare, and with Washington trampling states underfoot as it aggregates ever more power. This pushback will only become more intense. And things are happening because the whole thing is, I did a show on the Bundy Ranch, and there's areas in the Constitution that the federal government can ascertain like 10 acres, I believe, or 10 square miles. I think like 10 acres of land for their forts, armory, etc. And that's it. But now, like I said, there's claims about the whole thing on natural gas, and of course the Hammonds they said that the Bundys and his entourage does not represent them. Like so there's mixed views, which is understandable. I'm not. That's why you got to look at everything across the board. But I always tell people that a little rebellion now and then is good. However, Sun Tzu, the Art of War, you got to be very strategic also. So hopefully, this won't go any further to a violent resolution, regardless which side. And I'm very critical with the federal government or any government that practice tyranny. Okay, people who hear me long enough understand where I'm coming from. However, when it comes to rank and file, they have families as well. We have to always look at that in the bigger picture. And of course, when Ammon Bundy says they're going to use force only if we get upon, we'll defend ourselves, which is understandable. So, just gotta say, man, keep your hearts, prayers, and blessings towards make sure this situation doesn't go brutally disturbing. And that's all I have to say about this, to be very honest. Like I'll say before, I will get the links on those videos on this area, and you can make your own judgments, okay? All right. Next one here came the Washington Times, and about the whole gun control measures through executive order with the stroke of a pen. Yes, I know more than you. Ho, 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 ho. Okay? And it says here, Obama unveils new gun control measures. Too many victims of gun violence. So if you have a fist or a knife, that won't count, right? Okay, well, I'm going to continue on here. President Obama said Tuesday he's imposing new gun regulations by executive order because Congress refused to pass gun control measures that could prevent another mass shooting in the U.S. The gun lobby may be holding Congress hostage right now, but they cannot hold America hostage. Mr. Obama declared as he outlined the new executive actions at the White House. Well, so he thinks he stole Congress then, right? All right, continue on here. The administrative steps will include a crackdown on gun dealers who bill themselves as collectors or personal sellers. Enumerated rights out the window, according to him, but are actually engaging in the business of firearm sales, including transaction online. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives will require more of these dealers to obtain federal licenses, necessitating background checks on their sales. So they want you to be the nanny. Okay, this is how the BATFE wants to do it. Another bureaucratic institution trying to tell the dealers how to do it right. All right, it says here, Speaker Paul Ryan, Wisconsin Republican, said Mr. Obama is engaging in the front form of intimidation that undermines liberty. Oh, really? You're a true freedom guy, huh, Paul? Oh, okay, keep on here. He knows full well that law already says that people who make their living selling firearms must be licensed regardless of venue. Mr. Ryan said, still, rather than focus on criminals and terrorists, he goes after the most law-abiding citizens. The Speaker vowed that Congress will conduct vigilant oversight on the President's order. No, what you do, instead of saying using vigilant oversight, you get the executive order, you wipe your behind with it as toilet paper, and flush it down the toilet. Voila, what's so hard about that? No matter what President Obama says, his word does not trump the Second Amendment, Mr. Ryan. His executive orders will no doubt be challenged in the courts. Ultimately, everything the President has done can be overturned by a Republican President, which is another reason we must win in November. This guy is a neocon stooge. Please. We call it the Bill of Rights, chump. You and Obama are just a bunch of bend over Bob and dweeb as far as I'm concerned. All right, continue on here. In announcing the steps, Mr. Obama surrounded himself with survivors of mass shootings and families, members of victims in the East Room event, including former Representative Gabby Giffords of Arizona. He said there are a lot of heartaches in the room and called out Republican lawmakers for failing to protect the public. No, you got to protect the public. Each individual has a right to defend themselves. Government entities aren't obligated to protect you. Look up sovereign immunity and tort liability, okay? Mr. Obama says his actions are designed not to debate the last mass shooting, but do something to try to prevent a next one. I'm not on the ballot again. I'm looking to score some points, Mr. President said. But we do have a sense of urgency about it because people are dying and the constant excuses for inaction no longer suffice. Oh, really? So you're saying that using drones to kill innocent people is okay. Thank you, dumb down Obama. And I'll proceed here. Eric Pratt, Executive Director of Guns of America, said the actions will do absolutely nothing to limit gun violence. It is going to do nothing to make people safer, Mr. Pratt said. The president said he supports the Second Amendment, but there must be limits on it to protect the public. I believe the Second Amendment, he said, is there written on paper. It's guaranteed the right to bear arms. No matter how many people try to twist my words around, I taught the Constitution law. I get it. Mr. Obama's actions also incorporates by a move by the Social Security Administration to include information in the National Instant Background Check System. Also, beneficiaries who are deemed incapable of handling their own finances and are prohibited from owning firearms. Look at that. Nanny boy. Doing it again. Mr. Pratt said the proposal could affect up to 4 million seniors. You know what I tell the seniors? Piss on that guy. To hell with them. Spit on him. Wipe that piece of paper with the executive order and send it back to him directly. He takes a swipe at seniors. He said the problem is that affects inheritance and passing on firearms to children and grandchildren. During his 40-minute address, the president brushed away tears as he spoke about the 20 20 children who were murdered at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut in 2012, which prompted a failed to push in Congress to expand background checks on gun purchases. Okay, there, Barry Soetoro, can you explain why then? We, according to FBI.gov, Uniform Crime Reports of 2012, Newton had zero murders. I'll say it again, zero murders in Newton, Connecticut. Please convince me. Never. Every time I hear about those kids, it makes me mad, Mr. Obama said. And I have a feeling, I'm going to stop here for a moment. He has tears in his eyes. What happened? They gave him some onions before, before they gave him some onions to open up. They had an onion under his podium. I will continue on here. Um, Republicans President candidate Jeb Bush said he would repeal Mr. Obama's anti-gun executive orders if elected president. Oh yeah, and a man who supports imperialism and another bend over Bob to the New World Order. Look at that, bringing in the clowns, right? Bread and circuses. Barack Obama has proved again why he will go down as one of the most liberal and divisive presidents in the history of our nation, Mr. Bush wrote in an op-ed. Obama's declaration that he will impose his gun control agenda by executive order shows an utter disregard for the Second Amendment as well as the proper constitutional process for making laws in our nation. Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton thanked Mr. Obama on Twitter for taking a crucial step for gun violence. Please, you hate the Bill of Rights too, Hitlery. And so, have you been staying in touch with your fraternal twin brother George? Oh, Jeb Bush, excuse me. And it says here, our next president has to build on that progress, not rip it away. No, it's always been null and void. She tweeted. While the president focused much of his address on preventing another high-profile mass shooting, studies have shown that none of the recent mass shootings were prevented by more background checks. From the 2012 shootings in Connecticut to last month's terrorist shooting in California, firearms used were purchased from licensed dealers by individuals who passed all background checks. Mr. Obama said he rejects those arguments, even pointing out to a violent rampage in China by a man with a knife as evidence that guns in the U.S. cause too much harm. Each time this comes up, we are fed the excuse that common sense reforms like background checks may not have stopped the last massacre or the one before that, Mr. Obama said. So why bother trying? We know we can't stop every act of violence, every act of evil in the world. But maybe we could try to stop one act of evil, one act of violence. He said around the time of the Sandy Hook shooting, a disturbed person in China took a knife and tried to kill with a knife a bunch of children in China. Most of them survived, but he didn't access powerful weapon. Oh la 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 la. Like drama, like the glamour man here. We maybe can't save everybody, but we could save some, Mr. Obama said. In December 2012, a man with a knife injured 22 children at a school in central China. No deaths were reported. Private citizens in China generally are not allowed to own firearms. Okay, well, that's one big comical rhetoric, I would say. Awful, stupid, lousy. Even some homeless guy that can hustle better than him. And I'm not gonna bash the homeless either. There's some good people out there. But you got some hustlers out there who do a lot more effective than him. His teleprompting and teary-eyed by having possible onions under his podium. I don't know. But the whole thing is, this is just another farce, null and void, unconstitutional, unacceptable. Like I said before in my past episode, the Bill of Rights is an auto nullification. No ends, ifs, or buts. So the whole thing is, with the whole Social Security Administration, it's called a blackmail. Could we say RICO? Yeah, RICO. Come on. He is a racketeering demonade based on his actions. So you have to always look at this, my friends. It's none of his damn business. He's just trying to put the fear factor on you guys. See how many of you will belly up. That's how these individuals are. And like I said, any presidential candidate or politician that compromises our Bill of Rights culture hates freedom with a passion, regardless who they are, on what party they're in, etc. So you know what? Barack Hussein Obama, you're just another bend over Bob to the New World Order, and I have no regrets saying it again and again and again, just like your predecessor. And speaking of that, from Report UK, Obama weeps as he announced gun control measures via executive actions immediately denounced. And who the hell wrote this? Let's find out. Ah, don't know. Okay, no big deal. Find out who wrote this. Ooh, yeah. It says here, Barack Obama broke down as he announced moderate gun control legislation on Tuesday in the wake of the countless mass shootings that have made an U.S. international outlier for gun violence. The move was made by executive action against the will of Congress. The proposal will improve the federal background check system for gun sales, give millions of additional dollars to mental health services, and kickstart the so-called smart gun technology. Smart guns for dumb people. Tearing up when talking about the Newton massacre in 2012. The president says, every time I think about those kids, it makes me mad. Yeah, and just remember, like I said before, there's zero murders in Newton on that year, 2012, according to FBI report.gov. FBI.gov, yes. And look at that fake tear. Looks like he probably got some Visine and just like rubbed it, to make him look all teary eyed. Please stop the con man, you pathetic stooge. I have a feeling you may be hypnotized. We're on a hypnotic spell when they say, cry, Barry, cry. I'll continue on here. The U.S. is not the only country on Earth with violent or dangerous people. We are the only advanced country on Earth that sees this type of mass violence with this type of frequency, he reflected. It doesn't happen in other advanced countries. It's not even close. Right there, liar, liar, pants on fire. All right, continue on here. Instead of thinking about how to solve the problem, this is this has become one of our most polarized debates, the president added. Fort Hood, Bremerton, Aurora, Oak Creek, Newton, Navy Yard, Santa Barbara, Charleston, San Benito. Too many. Hey, and Mr. President, what they all have in common? They occurred in where? Firearm free zone. So stop talking out of your rectum. Okay, here, and it says here, the proposals, which enjoy widespread support across the U.S., were immediately attacked by Republicans as unconstitutional, with legal challenges likely to follow. This is a dangerous level of executive overreach, and the country will not stand for it, said House Speaker Paul Ryan, another neocon stooge. Let me tell you this. I don't buy it. Enjoy widespread support. Up yours. And the truth of the matter is, I know I see some of these little rallies and lobbyist groups. These people, I'm an NRA member. I support background checks. How much money? How much you got paid to say that? That is the question. I'm always inspired to do this. I'm not hired. I'm my own person. I'm like my show. I have no one financially backing me or any by any means. I don't go to rallies to try to get someone pay me to go down there. I did it my own free will, and this is totally absurd, ridiculous, ludicrous, null and void. So you know what? You gotta give him the P9 microphone treatment. Teary-eyed. You should have a big P. You should have two P9 microphones. In that one photo with those right at the podium. Please. Like I said, another bend over Bob and proud. All right, this one here is by Cato Institute. Came out yesterday, if I'm correct, by Jim Harper, and I originally got this from check this from the 10th Amendment Center. Good site, by the way. It's entitled "The Real ID: Rumor Control and You." The Identity Project says that the new DHS rumor control web page lies about the Real ID Act. That may be true, but but a lie is an intentional misstatement, and we do not We don't know if the PR professional who wrote the material on that page knows the issues or the law. Let's review the record. Taking each of the rumors DHS addresses in turn. so that the agency does not mistake the federal government's national ID policy in the future. Rumor, I need a passport to fly domestically. The DHS is correct that residents of any state can currently use driver's licenses and IDs as well as a variety of other forms of ID at TSA checkpoint. Last fall, though, in an effort to Buffalo states into compliance, DHS officials and others started fanning rumors that TSA would soon refuse the IDs and licenses of states that resisted the national ID program. You don't need a passport to fly yet. Given the practice of checking IDs at airport checkpoints, the upshot of real ID compliance would be that the U.S. will have an internal passport system for domestic air travelers. You don't need a passport to travel within the United States now, but that is the direction the policy is going. That's right. Feds know best and screw the rest. They'll tread on folks like you and me. Yeah, yeah. That was passed. That language was passed during I think it was the Military Appropriations Act, a bill of 2005. It was in there, and most of them Democrat and Republican did support it. So I think it may be hidden. I will continue on here. Rumor on TSA isn't going to accept my driver's license starting on January 1st, 2016. It must be reassuring when DHS rumor control page starts spreading this good news on December 31st, 2015. After deferring deadlines, many states, since the statutory deadline came and went in May 2008, DHS said that it would begin to refuse IDs from recalcitrant states no sooner than 2016. And it said it would provide 120 days notice before it did. But the desire to manufacture urgency and bring states to heel seems to have gotten better of the department, and the refusal of IDs on January 1st became a widespread belief. In fact, TSA will never institute a policy of turning away travelers from recalcitrant states. The reason why is a tidal wave of blame the agency will bring down on itself and the Congress if it ever follows through on its threat. On its threat. That doesn't mean its brinkmanship won't work. Many governors and state legislatures have been calculated what the politics look like, and they don't know that DHS has backed out every time a state has refused them. What also little misunderstood is that DHS is picking and choosing which states to threaten based not on the real ID law, but on an in-house material compliance checklist. DHS is issuing blanket waivers of some terms of the law to some states, while its state officials in other states. That is an absolutely required to enforce other terms against them. Rumor: I need to get a new driver's license or passport. The DHS responds here. The Real ID Act places the responsibility for action on the state, not the residents of the state. A more completely clarification would say the Real ID Act threatens residents of states to coerce actions out of their state representatives. The only thing that might require people to get the new driver's license is their state legislators and governors caving to the DHS and putting them to a national ID system. People in those states will be required to go back to the DMV and stand in line and show papers proving that they are legally entitled to be in the country. That that will be a challenging for many people, an insult to others, costly and time-consuming for everyone. That's right. Let the inconvenience begin, and the airline industry, can crumble, so the feds can take over. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And they want to do the dumb down game again. All right, and continue on here. Rumor: the Department of Homeland Security is trying to build a national database with all of our information. DHS should not try to refute this again. Doing so is untruthful, false, not accurate, and incorrect. As I've noted before, the law requires two. This is in subsection 12. Provide electronic access to all other states to information contained in the motor vehicle database of the state. 13. Maintain a state motor vehicle database that contains at a minimum A. All data fields printed on driver's license and identification cards issued by the state, and B. Motor vehicle drivers' histories, including motor vehicle violations, suspensions, and points on licenses. Oh, how astute of them. Who knows why those two items are listed out of order, but compliance with the Real ID means maintaining a big database and sharing it with every other state. States that don't do that are non-compliant with the Real ID Act. DHS isn't requiring it yet. It is not there on material compliance checklist. But if states get on board, the DHS will add the statutory requirement to the list. Real ID compliance now will put states in for a penny and for a pound. They're going to have to share lots of information about their residents with other states and the federal government. Yes, I know one thing for sure. James Madison is rolling in his grave. Phyllis Papers 46. And it says here, rumor. I can't use my license to access a federal facility or nuclear power plant. As part of the stage implementation, DHS says agencies are to refuse IDs from non-compliant states at federal facilities and locations regulated by federal identification rules. You see lots of announcements in the Federal Register about meetings where IDs from non-compliant states will be refused. And I've heard anecdotes anecdotes about people coming to Washington D.C. for government meetings being warned to have a compliant ID if their states are on the wrong side of DHS. What we haven't seen yet is anyone actually turned away from a meeting or courthouse or other location because the only ID they had they had was from a non-compliant state. When someone is turned away from a meeting or government facility for not having a national ID, the lawsuit will be really interesting. The DHS will have to claim that it can condition the right to petition the government, for example, on showing ID, and it will raise the question whether a person can be denied a constitutional right because they live in a state whose driver's licensing policy differs from that the federal governments prefer. The lawsuit will expose that DHS is picking and choosing among provisions of the Real ID law to treat as compliance. So, if you want your life to be easy, bring a passport on your next tour of a nuclear facility. But there are people in the country who stand on principle for liberty, sometimes at substantial cost to their convenience. So the whole thing is they want to say that federal law supersedes, is real ID supersedes the Ninth and Tenth Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. And you know what? It's a total, this whole Real ID Act is a total farce and unacceptable. And I have to admit, I got suckered in on doing this for the time being. And I can say this for me as myself. And the funniest thing was when I went in, I had my original non-certified birth certificate. I had to have a certified birth certificate. It's all in capital letters. And it was interesting because during that time, I was on the Florida DMV list since 1984. I was like 42 years old. So I asked the lady, goes, so with all due respect, you're telling me that I'm a 42-year-old illegal alien from Brooklyn, New York? I'm in the database since 1984? She just looked at me, but it's totally ludicrous. Like I said, I got swindled, so instead of complaining, I'm going to do something about it. And if you see my past episodes, they do have a travel ID card program, which is completely private and so forth, and including it's I think it's called from the Department of it's like the Department of Homeland, no, Department of State Transportation, I believe. But I'll get that website up. Man, sorry, I'm just falling asleep here. I just got a little bit groggy. But the whole thing is, every state in the union should denounce this. Should declare this is uncalled for, unacceptable. Then you know what? You get them where it hurts. And another thing too, those airports are owned by most of the airports are owned by the county. And another thing as well, we gotta restore our republic because the truth of the matter is the United States is once again a federal corporation. Title 28 U.S. Code Section 3032, subsection 15 if I'm correct. But look it up. So shame on the federal government and the people that voted on this with all the language pertaining to the appropriations bill. And of course, your Lord and Savior, George W. Bush, signed it as well. And you know what? That's what happens. They try to use anything they try to do something that's tyrannical and stays for the war on terror. go there and just smack them upside their head. That's all I gotta say about it. So, next one here from RT.com came out yesterday. I got this from David Icke. Yeah, David Icke put this on his Twitter account. So I'm gonna share this with you. This by Stringer Reuters. This one's entitled 1,000 crack British troops deployed to Libya oil fields to halt the advance of ISIS. So I'm like, oh really? That's pretty keen here. Oops, one moment here. Boom. All right, I'm just checking everything here. All right. All right, this is what it says here, my friends. British special forces have deployed in Libya to wrest back control more than a dozen oil fields seized by Islamic State, ISIL, formerly ISIL, ISIS, and ISIL. Good grief, it's all these names, but it's all the same. Militants, it has emerged. Approximately 6,000 Europeans and U.S. soldiers, including 1,000 British troops, will be involved in a number of offensives set up to halt the advance of the jihadist terror group. The operation will be held by Italian forces and supported by mainly Britain and France. Special forces, including military close observation experts from the Special Reconnaissance Regiment, are spearheading the major coalition offensive against the jihadist group, according to the Daily Mirror. ISIS, or is, whatever you want to call it, has seized several revenue-boosting oil fields in Libya. It is eager to win more control over the country, as the land could provide them millions of dollars to fund terror attacks. The terrorist network is now targeting the Masra al-Branga oil refinery, the biggest in North Africa. If jihadists successfully captured the oil refinery located between Sirte and Benghazi, they would gain full control of the country's oil. Britain's SAS is working with Libyan commanders to advise them on key battle space management, tactics to control battlefield using troops, tanks, warplanes, and Navy ships. They also will send intelligence to Ministry of Defense chiefs that could be used to determine whether airstrikes are needed. A senior military source told the Mirror this coalition will provide a wide range of resources from surveillance to strike operations against Islamic State, who made a significant progress in Libya. We have an advanced force on the ground who will make an assessment of the situation and identify where the attack should be made and highlight the threat of to our forces. Moreover, the ideologies of jihadism and the political Islam are alive and well. It is far too soon to write off Islamic State and organizations similar to it. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini told IB Times, in Libya, there is perfect mix ready to explode, and in case it explodes, it will explode just at the gates of Europe. Libya intervention will mark the first time British troops have officially taken part in a direct ground assault against ISIS. Libya has been in the throes of the chaotic civil war since 2011, ousting the longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi. Today, two rival governments and parliament compete for dominance amid a deepening Islamist urgency. More than 5,000 ISIS extremists are active in the country, according to the Libyan Interior Ministry. Well, this is what happens when you overthrow a country and all hell breaks loose. Thank you, NATO. Thank you, New World Order. And I'm not a Muammar Gaddafi fan. I admit that. But you know what? Bastards made a unilateral decision attacking Libya, and it's, oh, we freed them. Yep, now look what happened. It's called blowback. They're having in Benghazi. Blowback. Is all New World Order agenda? Yeah, I would say that. I have no shame whatsoever. So, that's what happens when people want to thrive on imperialism. Shame on them. All right. Finally, this came from shtfplan.com. This was originally came out by Zero Hedge. Just to let you folks know, it's entitled Germany in Shock After Monstrous Attacks Raped by 1,000 Men of Arab or North African Origin. And it says here, yesterday we were shocked to learn that as Germans' anger boils over at the country's unprecedented refugee wave, one or more so far unknown assailants fired shots through the window at a home for asylum seekers in western Germany, injuring one resident as he was sleeping. As AP noted, it wasn't immediately clear who was responsible for the incident or what the motive was. However, Darmstadt prosecutor spokeswoman Nina Renninger told news agency DPA, if someone shoots at housing which has people inside, I assume that is a targeted attack. As officers of the scene investigation unit examined the shattered window glass of a refugee shelter in Dreieich near Offenbach, Germany, Monday, January 4th, 2016. Today, we are just as shocked to read that. Even as we expected, the animosities between the two groups have dramatically escalated, and the mayor of Cologne has summoned police for crisis talks after nearly 100 women reported they were robbed, threatened, or sexually molested at the New Year's celebration outside the city's cathedral by young, mostly drunk men. Police said on Tuesday. One woman said she was raped. According to BC, the scale of the attacks on women at the city's central railway station has shocked Germany. About 1,000 drunk and aggressive young men were involved. The initial shock will quickly transform to furious anger because most important in this specific case was the origin of 1,000 drunk assailants who split into groups attacked women in the square. Citing the police chief Wolfgang Albers, BC notes that then men were of Arab and North African region, adding that they were mostly between 18 to 35 years old. He adds that the attack was completely new dimension of crime. BCC adds that what is particularly disturbing is that the attacks appear to have been organized. Around 1,000 young men arrived in large groups, seemingly with specific intention to carry out attacks on women. Fearing a public backlash, Cologne Mayor Henrietta Reckers said there was no reason to believe that people involved in the attacks were refugees. Nonetheless, after a crisis meeting, she admitted the attacks were monstrous, adding that we cannot allow this to become a lawless area. This, is, of course, puts her in a very precarious position if it's found that the attackers were indeed refugees. Recker was stabbed in the neck and seriously hurt in October, and just a day before she was elected mayor. Police said the attack appeared to be motivated by her support for refugees. Interrogation Commissioner Adian Ozogaz, a self-proclaimed Muslim, likewise warned against refugees and foreigners being put under a blanket suspicion. At this point, it is too late for damage control. However, is that become a case of guilty until proven innocent, especially since politicians involuntarily may be stirring the pot. We will not accept the disgusting attacks on women. All perpetrators must be held to account, said Justice Minister Heiko Maas, a social democrat, in a tweet. And as Reuters adds, the attack has stirred strong emotions in Germany, where Chancellor Angela Merkel has welcomed people. Sorry about that. Fleeing war zones in the Middle East and Africa. The political reaction was immediately a right-wing alternative for Germany. The right-wing alternative for Germany, which has gained in polls in part on Merkel's expense thanks to campaigning against refugees. She says she should close the border. Mrs. Merkel is Germany's colorful and cosmopolitan enough after the wave of crimes and sexual attacks, tweeted AfD chief Farouk Petri. Meanwhile, Germany's embattled prime minister urged people to respect strangers. Merkel said, "We respect everyone, even if we don't know them," she said. It is the case not only for Germans but for everyone. Unfortunately for Merkel, it is now too late to contain the incipient and increasingly more violent and soon lethal conflict between growing sections of the local population and the country's refugees' ways. Because, as Reuters further adds, and as we have noted repeatedly, sorry about that, there are almost daily attacks on refugee shelters. Events like that in Cologne foster xenophobia. Ronald Schaefer, head of Germany's Association of Towns and Localities, told reporters, yes, they do, and it was very obvious to everyone long before the recent breakout for violence when mixing two combustible cultures. These would be precisely the result. Unless, of course, outcomes such as these were precisely what the otherwise very perceptive Merkel had in mind all along. Recall AIG's answer to what Europe wants back in May 2008. Sorry about that. I'm just getting ready to zone out here. The two use global issues as excuses to extend its powers. Environmental issues increase control over member countries' advanced idea of global governance. Terrorism uses excuse for greater control over police and judicial issues, increased extent of surveillance. Global financial crisis kill two birds. Free market Anglo-Saxon economy. With one stone, Europe-wide regulators attempts at the global financial governance (EMU) create a crisis to force an introduction of European economic government. As for the monstrous attacks in Cologne, the local news site Kölner Enzinger says that the suspects were already known to police because of frequent pickpocketing in and around Cologne Central Station. People are trying to find out whether the men who targeted women on Thursday night, surrounding, molesting, and robbing them, organized their assaults through social media. They're also studying mobile phone and CCTV surveillance videos. For now, the local police are searching for over 1,000 assailants. They will be found, and it's confirmed that the monstrous attackers were indeed recent refugees. The dramatically escalating conflict within the German society is about to make a quantum jump into even to a ever greater violence. Yeah, it's just really disturbing, my friends. Like I said, you're always gonna even like if they are in general refugees, you always expect criminal elements. It doesn't matter. And another thing too is Merkel is on her watch. Is on Merkel's watch. She's in the hot seat now. And the people of Germany need to focus on what this whole thing's about. It is considered a Club of Rome platform. So that's one of their goals is to make immigration around the country for trying to conscript multiculturalism, to destroy people's heritages and all that. So you have to always look at those areas. I think the people in Germany need to break out of those little BS firearm laws if necessary and use it for self-defense purposes. I'm not saying go hunt these individuals down illegitimately. But as I know, it's all in the hands of her, on her watch, Merkel's watch. So I say this: I think it's time for Germany to secede from the European Union, and everyone else should follow through. And I'm sorry, I almost yawned a few times. Forgive me. But I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this show. Plus, feel free to download and share this episode throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, love letters, hate letters, and across the board, including if you got information. However, please use everything with decorum. Hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, World Truth, and Scene.life. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.